yield to my friend from New York, Mr. Suozzi.
Suozzi is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I have so many things that I want to respond to, but first to Mr. Rice, talking about the police officers. We have a letter from the National Association of Police Officers who come right out and tell us that the fact is that capping of the SALT deduction is a significant tax increase for many suburban homeowners, including law enforcement officers. They come right out and say that. The National Police Organization is telling us it's a tax increase for their members. You also said earlier something that's really just got my blood up, which is that these tax breaks that we're proposing here are being paid for by the low and middle income people in your district. That's just phony. That's just wrong. We're talking about increasing the taxes from 37 to 39.6 on the top bracket of the United States of America. That's where the money's coming from. It's not coming from low and middle income families. In fact, this is helping many low and middle income families. You knocked the community of, it's actually called Bayville in my state, in my district. That's a community of hardworking, middle-class families. It's not an elite neighborhood. In fact, and there are elite neighborhoods in my district, this is middle-class families with lots of police and firefighters and landscapers and contractors and plumbers and electricians who are living a solid middle-class life, not an elite life, a solid middle-class life. But this is hitting them like a punch in the gut. So it's just, you know, a lot of different things. I just want to stick with the facts here today, but the bottom line is a lot of people have been speaking here about knocking places like my state and other state and about people wanting to move out of our states. You're boasting about it. Oh, people are moving out of your state and they're moving into my state. Well, who's left behind? Who's left behind to pay the taxes? It's middle class and lower income families that are getting knocked apart. So it's not fair. This is about fairness. This is about taxing taxes you've already paid. It's not fair. It's not fair to put this burden on top of these communities that are just trying to provide their services to people. We understand that our taxes are higher. I want to thank Mr. Reed for his comments here today. I really am so grateful to him for him standing up for his district and for the taxpayers of our state and of others throughout the country. And he talks about how property taxes are regressive, and he's 100% right that property taxes are regressive. And you know what's happening in our country, what's happening in my state? My state that you guys are knocking much too often is the biggest donor to the entire United States of America of any other state in this country, that sends $48 billion a year more to the federal government than it gets back. And I'm sure when the new statistics come out under the GOP tax bill, because of the capping of the state and local tax deduction, that number will go up. We'll be subsidizing South Carolina and other states even more than we currently are. This is about fairness. It's not fair that we're huge net donors to the federal government, and now you want to increase that amount even more. It's not fair that people have relied upon this state and local tax deduction for over a century, and you want to take it away from them. It's not fair that people are paying taxes, are being asked to pay taxes on their expenses, a tax they've already paid. It's not fair that local and state governments, which have relied upon this for years, you know, we're mature states. New York State was a big, huge industrial state a long time ago, and as many of these other states that are high-tax states are such. We have pockets of poverty. We have decaying infrastructure. And instead, we're sending our money as net donors to many newer states that are growing rapidly. And when they get the money from the federal government, they build new roads and new bridges and new hospitals and new schools, and they expand even more. And they bring in new property tax revenues and new income tax revenues and new sales tax revenues. When we get our money back in New York State, and we're not even getting it all back because we're subsidizing the rest of the country, you know what we're doing? We're fixing old roads and old bridges and old sewers and old hospitals. And we're hanging on for dear life, and now you're trying to punch us in the gut again by capping our state and local tax deduction. And you're boasting. People are moving away from your state, and you're leaving behind other folks that can't afford to leave. My good friend, Mr. Kelly, talked about the choices people make. Well, some people can't choose to move so easily, and they don't want to leave their families and their friends and their communities that they've been there forever. And wealthier people can move away and get a cheaper tax rate in other places, and they do. And they leave behind middle-class and lower-income families that are trying to hang on for dear life in a mature state that has these problems that they're trying to address. So, listen, everybody here, I think, knows that I work constantly at trying to build relationships with our colleagues on both sides of the aisle. I respect and admire a lot of them. But please, don't knock my state. Don't knock my communities. Don't knock the folks that are paying these taxes and are having a hard time getting by, that are really suffering because their taxes have gone up, even though they're solid middle-class families, because their state and local tax deduction was capped.
Thank the gentleman. Let me recognize